Hi, and welcome to the Rig Run Recovery Zone. Today we have Alison Cuthbert, accredited CBT therapist. And today Alison is going to be speaking with us about compassionate work and ACT. Now, Alison, I hope I've said that right. Is it ACT I'm saying, or is it ACT or?
Yeah. Well, thanks again for having me. Yes, I thought this would be a nice follow on from the podcast that we've done already, where we've looked sort of generally at anxiety disorders, depression, and then perfectionism last time. Compassion and ACT is acceptance and commitment therapy.
Okay.
So yeah, it's a little bit of a sort of, we call them the kind of third wave therapies. They're sort of the new kid on the block. And interestingly, ACT is big in Australia. So for those out there in Australia, you've probably heard a little bit. You may have heard a little bit about it. There's a very cool Australian called Russ Harris who's done a lot of work with ACT and one of the kind of founders of ACT. So I just thought, we tagging on from all that we've looked at, I thought we'll look at a little bit of compassionate work, because compassion is really important in all of this, in all of our mental health. I think sometimes we forget to be kind to ourselves. So we can be very self-critical. We last time we heard that self-critical voice a lot in the perfectionism that we were looking at. And so we're going to, hear a little bit about compassion, see how it fits in with our kind of daily program, and what we can do to build our self-compassion, and so on. Yeah. So I mean, what's quite interesting is that in society we are all encouraged to be aggressive, motivated, achievers and everything else. And we don't, and compassion can sometimes be seen as a bit of a weakness, kindness, that sort of gentleness. Yeah, we're all, all these, last time we were talking about it, the shoulds and the musts and everything else. What do we mean by it? We mean by a kindness. I mean, compassion itself is kindness towards others. And self-compassion is being kind and understanding towards ourselves. As we saw last week with the perfectionism, if we're setting our goals and then not reaching them, what do we do? What do we hear? We hear that self-critical voice, don't we? Oh, you failed again. How useless you are. Should have done it that way.
I think it's easier to be kinder and more compassionate towards other people, isn't it? In your kind of daily life, you are thinking of others, you're trying to make others' lives easier or brighter.
Yeah.
But I think on the
sometimes we forget about ourselves.
It's a tricky one, isn't
it? Absolutely. And interestingly, what you're saying, that's sort of, if you like, altruistic behavior. So being kind towards others, that actually is a really good thing too. I mean, it's very much a sort of two-way thing, but this being kind to other people actually releases that sort of, serotonin in the system and can make us feel good. Yourself, if you go out of your, you're maybe out shopping and somebody's, trolley is tipped over or whatever has happened, and you can I give you a hand? Oh, that would be so kind. Thank you very much. And you feel better for it, So being kind towards others absolutely is a very important part of it. But you're absolutely right. Sometimes we can be so focused on others, and indeed so focused on achieving or success or whatever, that we actually forget about being kind to ourselves. So this sort of basic kindness, there are four key things that we need to do for ourselves when we are feeling a little bit overwhelmed. And I've used the word sort of struggling in my notes, because struggling can be feeling, yeah, overwhelmed with the workload. It can be feeling a little bit anxious about uncertainty that lies ahead. It can be feeling a little bit low. Maybe you're tired, you've been on long shifts, and so on. So that's a kind of, it can be a lot of different things. But 4 things, starting with awareness, being aware of how we're feeling, being attentive and recognizing that we are feeling the way we're feeling. And that's okay. That really is okay. We don't need to struggle. Yeah. It's okay to feel tired, overwhelmed, a bit low, and so on. Yeah. The second thing is normalizing. And I do a lot of this in therapy because a lot of people come to therapy and they really feel that they are the only ones that are feeling the way that they're feeling, because we have that thing, and we looked at it before, unhelpful thinking styles, where we do that comparing and despairing, and we're feeling our internal struggles, and we look around and everybody else seems to be coping, but not us. Yeah. And it's just me that's feeling like this. I'm the only one that's got these struggles. And actually, do you know what? We never know what other people are going through. Yeah. And so a lot of the work that I will do in this compassionate work is getting people to recognize it's normal. We all experience pain, struggles. It's not a fault. It's not a failing. We are not to blame. It's normal. Okay. So that's the other thing. Kindness. Don't ignore it, but meet it with what we call this kindness. Yeah. Don't struggle with it. It's okay. This is uncomfortable, but it's okay. It's fine. I can manage this. We also then think of alleviating. What can we do to manage it? And we'll look a little bit later in this to see what we can do. But if you think of the podcast about anxiety and depression and even perfectionism, and thinking about, when you feel that you are struggling and you feel that you are overwhelmed, what can I do to manage this better? How do I do it? Yeah. So, whether it's, upping the exercise, taking some time out, eating better, sleeping better, not rushing around at a million miles an hour, whatever it is, getting some sort of balance back in the life. So we'll talk about that. Compassion is really important. It's important for our mental well-being. And what's quite interesting is that studies have found that those who are more compassionate towards themselves have less mental health problems like depression, anxiety, and stress. So that's quite interesting. Yeah. They have a better quality of life. These people, a greater sense of well-being, and interestingly, can have less problems in relationships. Compassion is linked to the hormone oxytocin, also known as the love hormone. Did you know that?
And I didn't. I knew the name oxytocin, but no, I didn't.
Yeah, known as the love hormone. And we can trigger the release of this hormone and the calming benefits that it begins with. We can learn to do that by looking at some of the exercises a bit later on, just to get this feeling of calm, which can allow us just to de-stress. What's quite interesting, compassion, I'm going to talk about these balancing emotions, because interesting, one guy that I work with, an offshore guy that I work with, who was suffering from quite high emotions a lot of the time, stress, a bit of anger and everything else, said, God, I really like this compassionate work, which is unusual because sometimes we think of compassionate work as being a bit I don't know, it's a bit embarrassing, it's a bit sort of
uncomfortable almost.
Yeah, it's not very macho, So I was really intrigued that this chap that I was working with particularly said, I just loved that. But anyway, compassionate work helps us to balance our emotions. Okay, this is really quite interesting. There are three emotional systems.
Okay.
One is our threat, one is our drive, and one is our soothing system. And they're all interlinked. Okay, there's sort of arrows between them all. The threat is used to anticipate and avoid threat in order to survive. By the way, all these systems have come from many, many years of being man in the world that we live in. These are in our beings. And the threat system, for example, is the fight or flight again. Okay. So, the threat system looks out for trouble, and it, tries to identify what might be troublesome ahead. So it's, likely to be on alert. And that's the one, by the way, that gets in the way when we're feeling quite anxious. The alarm can go off, remember, just sometimes in our heads rather than us seeing something. Yeah. And then we've got the drive system. And the drive system, as you probably can imagine, is about us motivating ourselves. It helps us to work hard towards goals, energizes us, to do things. But it can also work in overdrive too. And so this is where if we don't succeed in a task, it might flip us quickly back into the threat system. Oh my God, I haven't achieved that. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So you can see how the two
It's interesting
interlink.
because you can see how they're linked together, can't you? And I
Yeah,
suppose
so
the
you've got the
soothing
drive
system is the
comes
one that we
in.
need to work on to help mitigate and calm ourselves get back down again.
Exactly. Because too much threat is not good. Too much drive is also not good. So the soothe system is very different, and it's the calming influence on the threat and the drive. And it comes into being when we are just chilling, feeling safe, calm, and content. And just as we talked before about when we do our nice breathing, we can't be hyper alert and we can't be calm at the same time. So this is exactly the same. You cannot be in threat and soothe, or drive and soothe at the same time. Okay. And what is really interesting is experiences of kindness and care tend to stimulate the soothe system. So, this is where this compassionate work, by being compassionate, we can actually get this soothing system to work a little bit harder for us, and to calm down the drive system and the threat system. Yeah. So really quite interesting. And I think when you realize that you've got the ability to do that, it does empower you somewhat, because I think sometimes we do feel this sort of, oh God, I feel like this and I can't do anything about it. But actually, we can do something about it. And very often it can be something as straightforward as, compassionate work, managing this soothe system in a more helpful way. Yeah.
So what things can we do, Alison? I'm sure you're going to go on and tell us this anyway, but
Yeah.
You're feeling super anxious, or you're feeling overwhelmed by your workload. What should I do if I'm feeling like that?
Okay, good question. If you think about it, we've got these two systems. We've got threat and we've got drive. We need to slow them down. And again, thinking of what I said right at the start about the awareness, the normalizing, the kindness, the alleviation, it's about slowing down and allowing yourself to become aware of your feelings and not struggling with them. Now, this is a really interesting thing. If you can imagine, I use the analogy of quicksand. If you're on a beach and you hit quicksand, and you do that thing, and you're, oh my God, I'm in quicksand, you will sink. But we're all told to do that star, and we lie there and you starfish and you don't sink. Yeah. In the same way, very often when we're feeling anxious, low, overwhelmed, that self-critical voice comes in and says, but you shouldn't be feeling like this. You've got a great this, you've got a great job, your family's fine, you're getting off the rig tomorrow. What's the problem? What is it? And the more that you struggle with all of that, the worse you feel. Yeah, you can
that
feel the
vicious
anxiety
cycle again,
building,
isn't
can't
it?
you? Yeah, you can feel, even talking about it. Oh,
Yeah.
So if you allow yourself to, and it's difficult for people initially to allow themselves to feel these emotions, but it's really a really important thing to try and do. A lot of people, when they begin therapy, say, I don't know, how am I going to possibly feel okay about feeling angry? And it does take practice, but the process does help. And these emotions, by the way, will always exist. We need them. They identify to us how we feel, and they help others see as well, communicate to others how we are feeling about things. So emotions are really important in all of this, but it's just also recognizing that we can manage them. And a lot of the time we fight with them, fight being angry, fight being upset, fight being ashamed, fight being embarrassed. And actually, a lot of the work that you can help yourself with is just thinking, well, you know what? I am feeling a bit uncomfortable here, and that's okay. Not struggling. There's a very nice link that I'm going to put on the resources to something called the struggle switch. And I would recommend that people out there have a look at that, because it's a very good example of just letting emotions, hard as they might, negative as they might be, to come and to go. It's okay. Don't struggle. So I think I would recommend that everybody have a look at that to kind of get an idea of what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and I think you can, I can certainly relate to that. If you're feeling worried, anxious about something that is going to happen, I think often, as you say, it's accepting that, okay, well, I can't control it. It's okay to feel like this, and that certainly does make a difference, doesn't it? Just to allowing
Yeah,
yourself to be allowed to feel that.
exactly. Yeah, tolerating these feelings, a little bit like, just as you're saying, not knowing what lies ahead, tolerating this uncertainty where we might struggle and worry to think, I need to know. It's learning to tolerate those feelings and allow
Yeah.
yourself, as you say, just to calm. So there's the slowing down, good old breath work again. And again, I think, Louise's work is going to really help with this, because the breath work slows the system down, and it allows us rather to learn to become present. So I think the
Yes.
mindfulness sits really very well alongside this self-compassionate work. So I would encourage people to have a look at Louise's work as
We
well.
also have Eve Elsby as well, doing a 6-week breath course. She's an accredited breathworks teacher.
Perfect.
So I think between Louise and Eve, there's definitely resources there on site as
Fantastic.
well.
Breath is just, learning to breathe properly is so important. So absolutely. And it helps us to be present. And by being mindful, it allows us to become aware of when we're struggling, and helps us from our mind. It stops our minds from leaping into these unhelpful thinking styles that we've looked at
Yeah.
previously. So mindful techniques, absolutely up there. Another thing is self-compassionate thinking. Thoughts are very determined, very important rather, in determining how we feel. And we've looked at that a little bit before. We've looked at thought records and so on. We've looked at the sheet with the unhelpful thinking styles. So, as we've said before, it's not the situation that you're in that determines how you feel, but the thoughts and the meanings and the interpretation that you feel in that situation. And we've seen how self-critical thinking can be really unhelpful in many ways about how we feel about ourselves. So changing the way that we think can really make a difference. And again, we've got resources about helping with that. You know, it's about learning not to accept the self-critical thoughts as true, but instead use your breathing and your compassionate voice to shift your mindset and shift it away from this really horrible, oh, you're useless, you're worthless, you've done it again. It's to actually recognizing that these are very much your opinions. It's not based on any factual evidence. And what's a more realistic thing here? Yeah, you're tired, you need to get offshore, you need to see the family, you're just feeling a little bit, you know, and so on. Yeah. So it's a very very helpful way, and doing this can have a really positive impact on how we're feeling by helping ourselves manage these unhelpful thoughts in a more compassionate way. A very nice, very simple exercise, and lots of people do it that I work with, being appreciative, noticing positives in your life. Write down 3 good things, or not necessarily write, but even think of 3 good things that happened to you during the day. And it's a little simple exercise. I do it every night before I pick up my book, before I start reading it at night. I just reflect back on the day. And what it helps you do during the day is focus on the positives, keep that sort of positive spin going. Yeah, rather than sort of always thinking negative, you know, oh, that happened today, or the blossom on the trees. That's, you know, I think that could be one of my 3s, or, you know, whatever it was, the nice conversation you had with whoever it was over lunch. So that's a really nice thing to do. Taking care of ourselves, and again, back to self-care, can really help with this self-compassion, being kind to ourselves, liking ourselves, and so on. And again, giving yourself the time to do the things that you enjoy, that make you feel good and happy, and maybe try something new. And again, we've talked about this exercise being very much part of the self-care package. We've talked about, you know, when you do get back offshore, if there are things that you feel that you need to do to make you, you know, relax and so on, be it jump on your bike or take the dog for a long walk or whatever it might be. It's important to communicate to others that that's how it is going to, you know, that's how it's going to help you. Yeah. And taking care of others, as I said to you, showing kindness and gratitude to others is really, that can make you feel better about yourself. And we know that it helps us feel more positive about things. So I think there's I don't know if there's anything in there that you would like to question, you know, ask questions on at all about the self-compassionate work.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it's one of those things, isn't it, that we probably all know that we should be doing these things, and we should be trying to stop that self-critical voice.
Sorry.
I suppose it's one of those things that needs to go with habits, and making habits, and forming a habit around doing it, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Sorry about that. That was my
Not
dogs.
at all. And you mentioned, like, you know, kindness, you know, being kind to others. It actually made me think of something I'd seen recently about, you know, paying kindness on. So somebody is kind to you, so make sure that you then, you know, you pay that on, you're kind to somebody else. Things like that, I think,
Absolutely.
certainly make a massive difference.
Absolutely. No, all of these things. I mean, being compassionate also involves some of the hard stuff like courage and you know, strength to face our struggles and doing what is needed to alleviate them. So it's, you know, it's thinking about the various systems. I mean, the, you know, the drive system, we need to bring that in to work at times, because absolutely setting ourselves goals and so on, as long as they're realistic goals, you know, good, smart goals, reaching goals also makes us feel good. Yeah. So there's lots of different ways of helping ourselves in all of this. There's I've got a book here, and I will put it up on the resources, but there's a lovely book here. I don't know if you can see it. Oops. Compassionate Mind.
Kind of, yeah.
Oh, there it is.
Oh, there we go. That's perfect.
Compassionate Mind.
Compassionate Mind.
It's called The Compassionate Mind, and it's by somebody called Paul Gilbert. And it's a really nice book about developing kindness and compassion for ourselves and how that helps us build our confidence. It's a really nice, easy, although it's quite a thick book, but it's a nice, easy read, actually. And I would, you know, suggest take that and have a look through it and see what you think. But I think, you know, balance in life is important, and I think you mentioned that too. You know, getting this too much, too little of things, and just trying to keep the balance sensible will help you manage more difficult through more difficult times. And as I say, another big word that I love is just acceptance, and acceptance that yes, sometimes things are tough. Sometimes things don't go to plan. Sometimes, you know, it really doesn't seem worthwhile. But actually, normalizing that and recognizing it's okay to feel. We're all human in this. We are all human, and we all feel like that at some stage or other.
Yeah, I think that's super. I mean, it's such a nice area, and I think that book actually sounds really interesting as well, Alison. I think, as you said, it's about allowing yourself and recognizing when you're kind of going down that road of being overly critical, to pull yourself back and take a minute and be compassionate.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, and
Absolutely.
as Alison's mentioned, we've got a resources button within Alison's profile that has links to all different types of sites that surround the work that we've talked about. These are obviously just initial signposts, but please, you know, speak to your GP, speak to your onboard medic if you've got any other questions, or certainly email into event coordinators and we can put you directly in touch with Alison as well.
That's great.
Perfect. Well, thank you again so much, Alison, and thank you all for watching.